Look alive, ladies and gentlemen. It is me, AK. We're on vacation. The vacation series continues, episode 395. It is May 6th, 2026. Happy National Beverage Day. What we've got in store for you just so happens I'm on vacation. We're at the beach. I'm absolutely fried 7 ways to Sunday. So, this is actually a show that we did prior, recorded to fill tonight. And it just so happens that the college football playoff, they're talking about expanding. And this is as relevant as it ever gets to that. So, thank you everybody for listening to the podcast. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And right now we're going to play this. We're going to play this PowerPoint presentation that I did last year, but I don't think we released as a podcast episode. So if you're listening to the show, we appreciate it. I'm going to finish out the rest of vacation. We'll see everybody Sunday night. Look alive, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for a bonus episode. It is still light outside. Got a couple of minutes here, so we're going to go in on this college football nonsense. Now, everybody's probably wondering, "Oh, here goes AK again. He's gonna rant and rave. Look, whoop! It probably sounded like Ben Roethlisberger." We got a nice, beautiful picture here of App State for the thumbnail. And it says college football, leave it alone. We're going to try to go through 3 reasons why I get so. This is probably one of, if you've watched our original show, if you have not, go check out the new podcast. It's out now. I have a page at the end of the show. And if you're listening at work, if you're listening on the way home, appreciate that. Or if you're watching it back, thank you. But let's get right into it. College football, leave it alone. This is like one of the hottest topics for me personally, because I get so sick of how people are convinced that they're doing everything for the good of the sport. You know, I was listening to Cowherd. I've listened to people on ESPN, and they're saying change is good. Embrace change. If you don't, you're a dinosaur. Let me lecture you from my ivory tower. And the fact of the matter is that I like to go deep dive on things and figure out, why are they making these moves? These are people in an organization, not the NCAA, but the conferences or organizations where they're businesses. This whole thing's a business now. It's like the NFL, it's the mini NFL, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The biggest thing is they are in it for the money. And, they do these things. The first thing, we'll go over the timeline. They had the BCS, then everybody got sick of that because they kept influencing that. And then it changed to the college football playoff. Before the BCS, it was the AP, and they did the college football playoff, and they screwed that up. And now they're going to this 14-team or this 12-team playoff, and they're already going to try to screw that up. It hasn't even started, and they're going to screw it up. And so there was an article that came out from, I cannot remember his name, but I think it's on the next one, Ross Dellinger, right? And so they said next week in Dallas, the commissioners, this was a Yahoo article, I think, so you can go look it up anywhere you want and read it yourself. I read it. Commissioners from the group of 5 will gather to discuss pressing issues, including a reshaped G5 postseason, incorporating the bowls and NIT of football is what it was coined in the article, which I think is a travesty. And you're sitting here and everybody who's the fan of these teams in the SEC or whatever are going to get up there and they're going to be like, oh, yeah, they can't handle an SEC schedule. I have got numbers to prove why they are stepping in to eliminate the group of 5, right? They're moving to the big power conferences, the Big Ten. Everybody on Fox is like Colin Cowherd telling you about the Big Ten, telling you, this is a different brand. And it's like, no, the brand Ohio State and Michigan and some of those upper echelon teams, yes, there's like 5 or 6 teams are in a league of their own, and there's no denying that, right? But then everybody wants to piggyback from Fox and say everybody just needs to accept this. It's the way it is. And it's like, well, yeah, because I'll show you here in a minute. I think I have it, but I don't. But anyways, Fox has a TV deal with the Big Ten, right? So of course, everybody on Fox is going to be like, Big Ten, SEC, these are the conferences that matter. They announce the playoff. What happens? Everybody shifts conferences. They eliminate the Pac-12. Well, we can't have a new playoff because there's too much volatility. It's like, well, you did that. You allowed for that to happen, right? So Anyways, will the G5 eventually lose CFP access? It is a looming fear. And that's the reason because of that. And if you read the article, is because they're basically threatening the automatic bid of the group of five, which is an absolute travesty. And there's a reason why they're doing it. That's why I wanted to do this, because I went last night and I started looking. I'm like, why would this article come out? I was like, the group of five's never been more competitive. And then I started to think, oh my gosh, are the tables turning for the group of five, right? Because people at the top who have all the power, all the platforms, all the revenue, right? When their product is, and this, I sent out a tweet the other day about, Stephen A. Smith came out and said, we've got to institute some regulations to, sports media because everybody's getting a mic. And I'm like, the reason he wants to do that is so that they can be at the top. So they can institute the regulations that favor them, that put them, that they're doing this for the good of the league or the good of the sports media. No, it's complete garbage. No, they're doing that because there is a threat. And I will show you why there is a threat. Because I went into the Reddit files, and I started looking deep diving. What is a group of five? What have they been doing? They've squeaked into the playoffs a couple of times here, which has been awesome. Yeah, I mean, everybody's like, oh, they got destroyed. TCU, they got killed by, great, newsflash. Nobody was beating Georgia. Nobody beat Georgia for like 3 years. So if that's your argument, that is a one-off of you don't know research. You don't know ball. But anyway, so if you read this article from Ross Dellinger, you'll see that the group of five, now I've been told that the Sun Belt Conference has come out and said we're not in favor. And they shouldn't be. They should stand their ground. But again, there's a lot of money on the line, and the people at the top are threatened. Okay. So, and I will show you that. Because they keep instituting these rules where the big dogs can stay the big dogs, and then everybody's like, oh, well, they have the best players. They have this, they have that. I'm like, I'm here to tell you, this was before App State was, me and one other guy on this show were part of one of, if not the greatest upset of all time in college football when App State beat Michigan. So you can't tell us and me that settling it on the field isn't a viable option. But they're going to make everything impossible for the have-nots in favor of the haves. So go check that article out and take a look. So consider these three reasons, and I'm pointing out these group of five conferences. And again, I've got numbers. Don't let them fool you. There is a reason why they stepped in and already tried to take a stranglehold on the college football playoff, right? They've already said that there was thoughts that the SEC and the Big Ten in the next 14 team, they get 4 automatic bids, and everybody's like, no, that's not fair. That's not how we're going to do this. So they've settled on 3, and they're keeping the 12, and the door is still open for what they're going to do on the 4th, or on the 2000, or on the 14 team playoff. So you have, you have the timeline of how things happen. And I'm going to show you, I have a website I'm going to pull up, and we'll go over these things. You have the TV deals and money. Again, I have more research. And then you have the gap is closing. And what I mean by that, the group of five over the last 3 to 4 years has been beating Power 5 conferences at a much higher rate. And if I know this as a casual football fan, not a casual, I'm a diehard football fan, I can almost guarantee you there's not a lot of people that watch more football than me and the people on this show, or know more football. We played football for a long time, all the way through college. The gap is closing. So if I can find this information on why the gap is closing, you don't think that the people who are running the show don't know this information too? You don't think that Michigan not scheduled? I mean, if you go look at any of the top SEC schools last year and who they played out of conference, now what they've done a really good job of is rallying the troops of the SEC, the fans, to go after people and say, well, look at their schedule. The last 10 years has been an SEC champion. I'm going to show you why it's been an SEC championship or an SEC team representing 15 straight years. Okay. You want to play that game? Well, guess what, buddy? Buckle up. But the gap is closing. And if I know these numbers and these numbers are out there, you don't think that the people at the top don't know it either? The people at the big schools with all the money? Oh, yeah, they do. Oh, yes, they do. So I'm going to take this down for a minute. I'm going to present the first slide here, or the first website. Hold on. Let me get this thing set up. But I'm going to present. Okay, yeah, that's the next slide is one that's going to bring it all home. But I'm going to put up the first website for those of you who are watching and listening. Okay, so let's go to NCAA College Football Championships and Winners. All right, so for the last, 15 years, Alabama, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Alabama, 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 Ohio State, Oregon. That was a one-off. Congrats, Ohio State. Auburn, Alabama, LSU. That was BCS. So from the time the college football playoff started, there has been at least one SEC team in. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So for the last 7 years, 8 years, there's been at least one representative of the SEC in the college football playoff final. Now, before that, it was the BCS. So what do we have here? Another Auburn, LSU, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, LSU, Florida, Texas, USC. That was 2005. That was an epic game. USC, Oklahoma, LSU, Miami and Ohio State, Miami and Nebraska, Florida State, Oklahoma, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Tennessee, Michigan and Washington State, Florida State, Florida, Nebraska. Okay. Now, when you get down here below, say 1996, 95, 94, and you start to scroll during the AP era, right? Look at when the BCS started and then start to look at what's happening. That's when the SEC started to assert its dominance, was around the BCS era. Because before that, they were scattered in here and there. I mean, you can look. I'm not making this up. Look at, oh, shoot. I didn't even share the screen. I did that last time. Hold on. So we'll go back up to the top. Look at this. Okay. Everybody who's saying, well, we've been in the SEC. We ain't played nobody, Paul. You get all this stuff. You can see it yourself. 2021, there's, I think, 13 out of 8 or 9, 10 years out of the 12 years or 10 years this thing's been going on. There's been an SEC school. Then from the BCS, it was Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Auburn, Alabama, Florida, LSU, Florida, Texas, USC. So 2006 is when things started to take a turn, or really 2003. So look at all that. Tennessee. So I think there were only, in the BCS era, there was only 3 or 4 matchups that did not have SEC schools in them. And if you want to extrapolate that to say Big Ten, okay, great. But again, around 96, that's when that all started, right? Because before 96, you had 1, 2, 3, and then you can keep scrolling, 4, 5. It was much more distributed, right? You get back down here and it's just, there's not a lot of SEC. So, but anyways, but the real line of demarcation is right there. And it's like, okay, well, why? Why would that happen? Well, let's pull up another slide. Hold on. There it is. Let's take a look at this. Let me put it up there before I go on a rant. ESPN and the SEC have teamed up for decades. ESPN became a national cable partner of the SEC in 1996. Huh. ESPN. Interesting in 96 that you and the SEC became partners. Do you think there was some money exchanged? And they aired the SEC championship game from 92 to 2000. Summer 24 will not only kick off SEC on ABC, also marks the SEC Network's 10th anniversary of the addition of Texas Oklahoma to the SEC. So 96, now wait a minute here. Wait a minute, before 96, there was only like 3 or 4 SEC schools in the AP area. When did the BCS start? Shortly after 96 and 98. Well, would you look at that? Florida, Tennessee. So, maybe money's involved here, huh? And then we get the run of everybody saying for the past 20 some years, 30 years, the SEC. Well, look at the line, buddy. Oh, you don't like that? Okay. So let's do this. Fox paid for each bowl game, $20 million for the BCS bowl games were on Fox, the Orange Bowl, Sugar Bowl. So, who's in cahoots with Fox? Oh, the Big Ten. Okay. Well, that makes sense, right? So you don't think that the people that are paying these for these games or in a contract with these teams don't have a say in who they want in the playoffs? From 1996 on, Florida, Tennessee, 1, 2, 3. Hold on. Let me scroll up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then, of course, you had Alabama played, I think Georgia won it back-to-back, and then Alabama. So, well, how many years is that? So, 25. So, out of those 20 SEC representatives ever since the TV deal in 1996 and the BCS beginning in 1998. Isn't that interesting, wouldn't you say? Wouldn't you say? That's just interesting. So that's just one example. Okay? So we've seen that as soon as, boom, SEC, ESPN strike a deal in 96, and for about 30, 25 years now, it's been SEC represented. And that's, I'm not saying SEC is not good. I'm not saying Alabama and Georgia are not talented. But you look at the timeline where the BCS started and the AP ended, and you see that the money was thrown there at the SEC. ESPN had the rights. Fox had the rights. And then you look to see, okay, all those teams are now always in the championship. Okay. And the ACC did have a deal with ESPN. Now they have a deal with the CW. Florida State got screwed, right? But anyways, so that's follow the money, follow the timeline of where all this stuff's going. And then they come out with this article that says the G5 might be the NIT and have to do their own deal. Well, what in the world? How could that happen? Okay, well, let's talk about the G5. So the percentage of wins, if you add these games, so 2000, determining the skill gap between the G5 P5 has been one of the biggest arguments. So I collected the results of their game in order to compare them. Okay, so disclaimer, the 2020 FBS had 20 games that were G5 P5. That was the COVID year, which is like 1/5 of the total. And if you think I'm making all this up, you can go back and look yourself. You can go look at who all the SEC schools played in their non-conference. You don't think teams figured this out a few years ago? Jim Harbaugh didn't schedule any challenging group of 5 teams. Neither did Alabama. Neither did LSU. They all schedule these. LSU, I think, played Oregon one year, and maybe they had a big game last year. You'll get one or you'll get a few every year, but for the most part, they'll schedule an FCS school or something. Then they'll be like, "We're so giving. We're giving you all the money. We're providing. Hey, we'll stand up here and just hand you money out." What? That's dumb. So it started at 14. So there's been a general rise in G5 wins and P5 against P5, starting from the initial season in 2013, started at 40%. It's still not close to the 50% where you'd hope so. But what if those close? What if a lot of those games aren't cupcake matches? Alabama or Clemson playing clearly an outmatched lower level team. And my whole point of this is that the gap of talent is not that far. The issue is the resources and what people can do with money, especially in college football. So there was this whole big thing. So it started off at 14%. Overwhelmingly, the majority of the P5 advantage wins belong to the P5 isn't a big deal. Like I said, there's a lot of cupcake matches, and those are what I wanted to remove. But even still, the total win percentage rises from 18 to 23. Now, this was done in, I think this was stopped in 4 years ago. So this was done in 2000. I think it was done in 2019 or 20 is when it stopped. And even where the G5 team is notably more wins than their Power 5 ownership, the win only floats 40 to 50% for 3 conferences, and an abysmal 30. So the Conference USA and the Independents are not that great. And then, this was done. I can't remember. I think it was done, and it stopped in 2019. So the point of this is that it is going up. The win percentage has risen at least 10%, and this stopped at 2020. It stopped at 2020, 4 years ago, right there at the top. You see it? 4 years ago, 2020, it was at 23 or 26%, somewhere in there. Okay? So now everybody's like, oh, let's take a look in the last 4 years. This was done 2 months ago. So I'm ready. So what's the title? Last time each group of 5 team beat a P5 opponent. You can go down and look at this list. 2022, 2018, 22, 20, 21, 2013 for Ball State, 2019 for Boise State, 23, 2018, 21. Look at all this. Every single one of these is almost within the last 4 years. 2012 for Kent State. So there's a couple of outliers, but for the most part, look at this. 2019, 2023, 23, 23. Look at this. Virginia Tech losing, Iowa State, Cincinnati. They're beating Miami. They're beating Kansas State. Navy did 2019, California, Arizona, Arkansas. Da-da-da-da-da. All of these are within the last 4 years. Look at this. Most of these are within the last 4 years. This is why they stepped in and they did something that unearthed the playing ground again, right? UTEP's 1974, great. But look at all these. 54% of teams have a win over a Power 5 conference within the last 4 years. That means every other game you're scheduling with these within the last 4 years, the group of 5 is not only keeping it close, and a lot of these games are pretty close. You know, App State, where we went, we went toe-to-toe with Carolina last year. We took them double overtime. We took Penn State to overtime. We took Tennessee to overtime. So the point of this list is you're not seeing the Ohio States, the Texases, but what you're seeing is that the actual gap of the conferences between the group of 5 is that these group of 5 teams can absolutely play with the Georgia Tech. They can absolutely play with an Arkansas. They could play with an Arizona State. They could play with a Tennessee. This is not, and that's the whole point, is you look, again, they expanded the playoff, and then they automatically gave the highest group of 5 ranked team a bid into the playoffs, which is what we wanted. And now they've already said, hey, why don't you guys break off and go do your own thing? You're just not up to snuff. Well, look at this. That is absolute nonsense, because we have a list within the last 4 years of when these teams have beaten Power 5 teams. I'm not making this up. This is data that they have, that they know is going to happen. So you don't think this was, okay, well, now what do we do? Well, I'm going to show you what they do. Okay? Let's put up, hold on, let me get it set up. But I'm going to show you what they do. Okay? Hold on. There it is. We're going to share that. We're going to maximize it. Now, again, I'm not old guy yelling at cloud. I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you this is not by accident. Here from February 23 to 2021. The win percentage of group of 5 teams versus Power 5 teams by season, right? That means however many times a group of 5 team beat a Power 5 team. It started off 2013 at around 14%. Then it jumped up in 2016 to 20%. That means 1 in every 5 games a group of 5 team was winning. Now you come over here all the way to 2020, where the last study just started, right? So this was up to 2020. And then we just saw that number is now way up here. It's way up here now. It's at 54%. Look at that. So you don't think they came in and said to these, they got in the meeting room and the group of fives there, like, we finally got a seat at the table. And then they know all these numbers. They see that the group of five teams are beating the Power Five teams at a higher rate every other game, essentially, and said, we have got to do something. So in 2021, what did they do? NIL is legal now. Well, what does that do? Well, that gives Texas A&M, it gives Texas, it gives Ohio State, Alabama, all these. You got coaches retiring. You know, again, the talent level is not, the depth is a little different, but they initiate the first way to kind of shut down the group of five. NIL. Well, I mean, NIL, you can't. App State is not going to have the same donor or what's it called? I cannot remember the name. Donors. SMU has one of the biggest ones. Texas A&M has one of the biggest ones. I can't remember the name, the term for the whatever it's called. But they can't compete. So that's the first step. There you go. Yep. Keep an eye on the smaller schools and conferences. Money on the Patriot. If you go back and watch this again, this right here, this means percentage of group. That means how many times teams beat a Power Five team. I'll pull up the other one here in a second after I drive home this point. So I put in there 54%. This is the same stat. G5 teams last win against P. So they've started to institute steps to whittle out the P5 or the G5 where they can't compete. And you could see that 4 years ago it was around 30. Now it's up to 54. So that chart would be way up here at this point. So they know, right? They know. But they first instituted, okay, the college football playoff 4 team, not effective because the talent level's evening out. The coaching's evening out. And if you watch football, you know this. And so what do? They say, okay, we're going to expand it so that we can get more of these teams. And everybody goes, well, you're just going to debate about the 13th and 14th. Endowment, that's what it is. Boosters, the endowments. Boosters have exactly, dude. It's the money. Go back and watch this again, Patriot. This is crescendoed into it's a passion of mine. I will not stand for this nonsense. So anyways, the endowments are huge. They say NIL is now legal. Well, that just completely hurts the group of 5 teams because they can't compete unless you're SMU and you've got this huge endowment. And the ACC is like, come on in. Here's the door. Here's the red carpet. Come on in, SMU. You know, you can, of course they're going to let them in. But, anyway, so the NIL becomes legal 2021 to make sure that the people at the top, and what does Ohio State go out and do? They pay like $30 million. Oregon says, okay, what's your face from Nike, Phil Knight, just empty the pockets. And they can't compete with the recruiting. So they stepped in and started to challenge the recruiting of the group of 5. And the reason they did that is right here, because now these group of 5 teams, they're beating Vanderbilt. They're going to beat the Kentuckys. They're going to beat the Rutgers. They're going to beat, the Georgia Techs. They're going to beat teams from the Big 12. So they saw this and they knew they had to do something that was going to, and, if you listen to Fox or ESPN, they're going to be like, NIL is just part of the deal. You have to pay the players. They dress it up as pay the players. And really what they're doing is trying to suppress the even playing field of college football, which is what we all want so desperately. And I'll be the first to admit, if you put, the top couple of group of 5 teams in there and they're playing Alabama, the first couple of years, they're probably going to get smoked. But we have seen over the last 4 years that this is not the case anymore. These big Power 5 schools are not playing the App States. They're not playing the Liberties. Now, the big example was Oregon beat Liberty by 40 that's one time. TCU got crushed. Okay, but they're there. They have played so well to get into the conversation. And as soon as their grind that they have been on to get to this point, they get there and they're proving that they belong with these numbers, they institute NIL, pay the players, right? And then they say, we're going to change the playoff. And if you guys want to stay around, maybe you should just go do your own thing because it's a threat. And they don't want it settled on the field. They want to make sure that the boosters and the endowments stay where they're at. And they have the TV deals, and it's not good for business whenever a small team comes in there and is wrecking their product. So, bottom line, this is why they're changing things so rapidly, because they know that the competition is not that far off and that it is being the top dogs. It's difficult for them to stay there whenever the group of 5 team is doing more with less. So, and it's not to say all group of 5s, right? Like I would picture, the Sun Belt, the American, the Mountain West has some good teams. I'm not saying that it happens every time. I'm just saying more often than not, these teams are competitive and they're winning. They're winning 54. They're winning more than half the games. So I just wanted to get on here, and I put a lot of work into that. So because I love football and I love the parity of football, and I hate whenever it's decided in a boardroom and you get yahoos that throw Florida State out because they were undefeated but didn't have their quarterback, and they never even got a chance to settle it. I don't like that. It'll be ugly initially. That's okay. And it may not be. You'll get a surprise winner here and there. Tulane beat LSU a few years ago. Well, they didn't have any other. Well, whatever. Okay, great. Make an excuse. But that's all I wanted to say. I think I got everything in there I wanted to get in. But Super James, I'll go back and show you this quick slide over the last. I wonder if I can. No, I don't think I can. Hold on. Stop that one. I'll show you that real quick if you're still here. Again, driving this home. Look at the last 4 years of these. Look, it's all been within 5 with the last time they beat them. Phenomenal stuff. So they saw that and they said, let's get rid of these teams. They're a thorn in our side. It's not good for business. So, but they want 4 divisions. That's why the Pac-12 is gone. Yeah, the Pac-12. Yep. They want 4 divisions. They wanted everything to consolidate into the Big Ten and the SEC because they're mad because all these other teams that aren't Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, these big name schools. There's like 8 to 10 schools that are just like in a league of their own. They tried to make sure that happened. So that's all that is. Let me get back. That's all I have. I hope that was fun because it was fun for me. And I'm just going to put up a little screen here. Pull this back up. Thanks for tuning in if you were with us for this long. We're doing stuff like this regularly. I love putting PowerPoint slides together. There you go. So if you like this information and want more, check out our show. Check out the podcast. It comes out Monday, Thursday. We record the live show on Wednesdays and Sundays. Join the chat. Jump in there. Follow us on all these socials. Us and the boys get together twice a week, and then we'll do a couple of random streams throughout the week. And we're going to try to do more during football season because we love football. So get over there, follow all those. And here's the QR code. If you don't want to do all that, just screenshot this, click it. It'll take you right to all of our links. Anyways, everybody have a good Friday. We love football. I don't want them to ruin football. They need to stop it. And I hope you'll join the movement with me Strategically planning to make sure the people at the top stay at the top. See, Patriot, and we will see everybody next time. Have a great Friday and have a good weekend. If you need something to listen to, go listen to our last podcast. Hopefully you laugh. See you later.